Hello and welcome back to the Patient First Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin, and as always, I'm so excited that you're here. And man, oh man, has our podcast been growing. Thank you for all of your listeners, all the listeners out there that's really made this podcast a success, rated as one of the top 25 podcasts, growing in the charts, making waves, doing great things, and you're all a part of it. Please like, comment, subscribe below. And this podcast today is brought to you by Toothapps Patient that we just launched at the Chicago Midwinter. Now, obviously this is recorded, so it might be after that a little bit, but could not be more excited for what we launched in Chicago. The team, the Toothapps team, has just been completely crushing it, from the amazing developers that we have to the marketing team and the sales team and the support team. Everybody has led the way for patients for the first time to have access to their dental records, complete electronic dental records, in the palm of their hand in a secure way. It's incredible. And I also want to take a step back and do a correction. This might be the first correction that I've ever had to do in 5 years of podcasts. Once I think I mispronounced somebody's name, but factual correction. This is the very first time I think I've had to do that. And it's a bit of an oops. However, it's also a technicality. So I've been talking on this podcast and in general about the 21st Century Cures Act. And still, 99% of the profession doesn't even know what the 21st Century Cures Act, even though I wrote a freaking book about it called Dental Disorder. Check it out. It's a great book, if I do say so myself. And we'll put a link around this podcast so you can get a copy of Dental Disorder. And the fact that this is the 2016 Cures Act. Is 2016 a little bit ago? Absolutely not. Frankly, it's a lot newer than a lot of software in dentistry, which is more 1990s. However, the Cures Act was passed in 2016, and the entire industry until now has been out of compliance. And there's been no way to comply with the 21st Century Cures Act really until now. And then HIPAA, which everybody goes, oh no, Bryan, don't bring up HIPAA. So let's talk a little bit about HIPAA. HIPAA. There's one P. A lot of people say HIPAA. Nope, it's HIPAA. And because HIPAA, for the most part, talks about privacy and security, a lot of people, when they think of the P in HIPAA, think it stands for privacy. It does not. It stands for portability. Portability. And one of the things that HIPAA covers, which I have blent the 21st Century Cures Act into HIPAA in the past, so I want to be clear about this. HIPAA has it is the regulation that states that all healthcare professionals, including dentists, have to provide the entire electronic health record, including electronic dental records, in an electronic format, in a mobile-friendly way to patients securely. So the piece of legislation that states that dental patients have a right to their entire electronic dental records is actually HIPAA. Even older, even longer in place than the 21st Century Cures Act. And my friends, not possible until we did it at Toothapps Patient in Chicago of this year. And I could not be more excited that this is the case. Why? Because now when we get a new patient, we're going to get all their information. When we refer a patient from a general dentist to a specialist, we'll be able to open the electronic dental record for those specialists so they can have the information. No duplication of testing, which is a waste of time. No, sometimes we need to validate the testing, but beyond that, like no extra radiography and exposure that's unnecessary and wasted time, energy, and money. We'll actually have the information about the patient when we need it, and the patient will have the information themselves. I think, my friends, this is going to be the biggest increase in case acceptance that we've seen since the intraoral camera. I think that patients who have access to their own information, when they're knowledgeable about their dental conditions, they're going to say yes. Let's face it, if we could be like Charles Xavier and use our telepathic powers to take our information in our brain and put it into the patient's, would they say yes? Obviously, yes. That's why we're recommending treatment in the first place, because we're looking in the patient's mouth going, oh my gosh, this is what I would do if it was your mouth or my mouth, if your mouth were my mom's mouth, my wife's mouth, my son's mouth. Yes, they would say yes to treatment more often. And we can't do that, right? We don't have the neural link established yet, although they're working on it. But we do have the ability to give them their information the way we see it in the palm of their hands, complete with the ability to pay their bill, get third-party financing, do a teledentistry consult, follow-up questions, securely discussing with your office directly, instantly in the palm of their hand. And my friends, that's the way everything else works today. And so when you buy a card, you just walk in and say it'll be 30 grand and just buy it. Not most people, right? Most people get brochures. They're looking online at the information. They might download the application for the car. They might be calling back and forth, talking to the salesperson. Doesn't have to happen securely, but it does in dentistry, right? And this is a big deal. This ability to be at the fingertips of our patients, having them have the ability to have their electronic dental records isn't just going to be the best tool to increase case acceptance since the intraoral camera. Isn't going to be the best way to handle reminders and recall and patient financing and all of the touch points that we have with the patient. Isn't going to be just the best way to have remote care through teledentistry. So when somebody has an emergency, they don't end up in the ER like 1/3 of dental emergencies. It's not going to, all of those positive things are great, but it's also required by federal law. If you don't do it, offices pay about $10,000 to $80,000 per chart when the patient complains to the ONC today. There's a website at the ONC. You can just Google it. Cures Act reporting dentistry, or I want to report my dentist for violating Cures Act, or I didn't get my dental records in enough time. It'll all funnel you to the same page where you can anonymously report somebody, and they will pay between $10,000 and $80,000 today. And the only place that I know that you can actually avoid those fines by being compliant with the 21st Century Cures Act, meaning though that allows software vendors to enable you to provide your patients with their HIPAA right to have access to their dental records. So my friends, the correction is I was talking about the 21st Century Cures Act as everybody in the healthcare chain needing to give access to those that need it. And my attorney, frankly, corrected me and said, Bryan, it's really HIPAA that covers the dentist to patient connection. So that is a HIPAA connection, but the fact to make it available for you as a dentist to give your patients their electronic dental records falls under the Cures Act. If a patient's upset they can't get their dental records, they're not going to go to your imaging platform, are they? They're not going to go to your practice management software vendor and say, I can't get access to my data. They're going to come for the dentist, plain and simple. That's a HIPAA violation. If, however, you have as a dentist or as a DSO, if you're running a DSO, listen up, because you're the target, right? You're the big company that is going to pay the $80,000 fine with audits by I don't even know what the companies that paid the fines do now. In fact, one of them came by my booth in Chicago and they signed up because they were like, we need this. Because guess what? Not only did that office pay a $35,000 fine for a patient, but they have an audit with the ONC where they have to say how they're going to comply. And as far as I'm aware, no other way to comply than Toothapps Patient. So go check it out. Go to toothapps.com, sign up. It can be totally free for practices, totally free for patients. So there's no reason not to comply. Very excited about it. Little bit of a correction about HIPAA covering patients' access to data from their dentists. But per the 21st Century Cures Act, my friends, if you are a dentist, if you own a DSO, if you run a DSO, it's the 21st Century Cures Act that states that the practice management software vendor and everybody else that has the part components of electronic dental record has to allow you to give your patients access to their data. And huge violations. I just saw a company that put up on their website that they're Cures compliant, that they've been certified as Cures compliant. And we reached out to get their API on behalf of a customer, and they told us we don't have one. That's the state of our industry, my friends. That's just, it's almost like flaunting it to the ONC, right? So I think you'll see some fines coming their way. My friends, comment, subscribe. Thank you for making this podcast more successful than I ever thought it would have been. And thank you for your interest in elevating dentistry, which is what we're all here to do. And I think we just got a big step up by giving patients the ability to take agency of their record information. Anytime you go to the physician and you have the physician tells you something, what do? You log into the application. 50% of patients that their physician uses Epic have downloaded MyChart. 50%. And MyChart doesn't allow you to do the type of things that Toothapps Patient does. So your patients are going to demand it. It's federally required. It's free for most of you. So go check it out. Toothapps.com. Thanks again for being part of the Patient First podcast. And as always, I look forward to talking with you next week right here